Yo guys, hey, what's up? It's your boy here, Ken. Doing a video on Daniel Bryan. Breaking news that Daniel Bryan is done with WWE. Apparently, this story broke sometime last night. I wasn't on social media too much last night, and I kind of went to bed early. So I woke up this morning to the breaking news of Daniel Bryan no longer being with WWE. Legitimately, this comes from Fightful. It was a valuable source, Sean from Fightful.com. And then after him, other viable sources kind of add some pieces as well. But I'll just give you a subscript here of what Fightful said here. That Daniel Bryan is officially gone from the WWE. According to Fightful.com, who have spoken with sources both in and outside the WWE, Daniel Bryan's contract with the WWE either expired or was set to expire last week. He was then booked to lose to Roman Reigns in a loser leaves town match and has been moved to the alumni section of WWE.com. I read this and I was like, well, wait, what? Go to the WWE website. He is on their alumni section. So, just kind of backtrack a little bit here. If you remember, Daniel Bryan had announced about a year ago that on SmackDown actually, that he's kind of like winding down in his career. He kind of wants to end his career on a high note. So this is basically like his last run, basically, going from last year going to this year. We also knew, I don't think too many people paid attention to it, but we knew Daniel Bryan's contract was coming up at some point. I didn't think it was this early in the game, but I was thinking like maybe until 2022. Daniel Bryan was kind of had like at least another year left on his contract. But there's that. 3, we have the storyline where Roman Reigns gave Daniel Bryan an ultimatum, or gave him a title shot. Said, hey, if you beat me for the world title, or if you lose leaves town match, if I beat you, you have to leave SmackDown. We all thought, at least I thought, and I've seen quite a few other people too, thought that maybe this was their way of, them writing Daniel Bryan off so he can have some rest time or whatever with his family, recover, recoup. And this will also be a way for them to maybe put him on Raw or something. Like when the time comes, when he does come back, they'll put him on Raw, or for all intents and purposes, which I thought would have been a fun idea. Put him in NXT and let him have a little run down there. So they had the match this past Friday, which was an excellent world title match on free TV between Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan. Excellent title match. Bryan loses. We all kind of thought, okay, cool, move on, storyline. Now that we get this, that Daniel Bryan's contract legitimately expired either sometime last week, or it had been expired maybe a little bit longer than that. It had already been expired. Kind of shocking. Now, let's think about post WWE. What can Daniel Bryan do? Where would he go? I don't think Daniel Bryan is done with wrestling. He's 40 years old. Yes, he's had some concussions in the past. I don't think he'll wrestle like forever, but I don't think Daniel Bryan is done being an in-ring competitor. I just think he's done being an in-ring competitor for WWE. Now, where does Daniel Bryan go from here? The options are out there. Just like anybody who leaves WWE, there are options out there, and AEW is not the sole, it's not the sole option or second choice. I could see Daniel Bryan wrestling a little bit of everywhere. And what I mean by, I don't know if you guys remember, but when Kurt Angle left Impact Wrestling back in like 2015, I think it was, he did a farewell tour, was like his thing, where he was wrestling a bunch of different wrestlers. And I think he even did in TNA too. They played into the storyline where he like wrestled like some of his classic like opponents and stuff in TNA, and then even post Impact Wrestling, before he came back into WWE, he was wrestling. He was doing like a farewell tour where he was being booked and wrestling at different independent promotions, wrestling Defiant, wrestling Cody Rhodes. So he wrestled a little bit everywhere in the independent scene before coming back into WWE. I can see Daniel Bryan doing the same thing, where he would either have maybe a couple bookings in Ring of Honor. He may have a couple of bookings in maybe in New Japan. I think he'd definitely be good there. Have definitely CMLL and down in Mexico. I can see Daniel Bryan doing that more so than like being restricted to one company and then staying with that one company for like the next 2 to 3 years. Um, Now I do have to kind of play devil's advocate here and kind of look at AEW. If I am AEW and I'm looking at this, I'm keeping my ears to the ground. If they get Daniel Bryan, that would be a huge get. Now, I know everyone would say this is another WWE guy AEW is bringing in. I've been the biggest critic of AEW scooping up a lot of WWE guys. This is why I say AEW should not always get a lot of WWE guys, because in a case like this where you can kind of make the excuse of taking in the WWE guy, Daniel Bryan is an asset. Not only as an in-ring competitor, but I think Daniel Bryan brings a lot creatively behind the scenes. I think he can be an excellent producer. He kind of had a producer role in SmackDown. We already know. We know Daniel Bryan was responsible for the push of Big E. We know Daniel Bryan was the advocate for the push of Cesaro and the push that he's having right now on SmackDown. So Daniel Bryan can be an asset to AEW more ways than one, which is another reason why I'm kind of surprised that like if he's done with WWE, that means he's just done with WWE. Because if he's done being an in-ring competitor and him already kind of having some creative influence, or at least to a degree he's had in SmackDown and his booking for SmackDown, I would have thought that like if he's done being an in-ring competitor, he'll transition to like being a backstage producer / maybe booker and being the booker committee for SmackDown, which would have been a good spot. But if Daniel Bryan is done with WWE, that means he's just done with the WWE machine and he wants to actually just go elsewhere and do other things. But I don't think he's done with wrestling, because if you rewind like maybe 3-4 years ago when Daniel Bryan's contract was coming up to expiring, and he was being very, very not vague, but he was being very bold in interviews where he was saying like, I want to wrestle, WWE won't clear me. If they don't clear me, that's okay. When my contract expires, I'll go and wrestle in Japan. I'll go wrestle in CMLL in Mexico. I'll wrestle here and I'll wrestle in independent scenes. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to wrestle. You remember Daniel Bryan making that very clearly when his contract was coming up to close to expiration date 3 years ago. Then shortly after, like as soon as his contract came up to expire, what was the news that came out? Daniel Bryan has cleared, WWE has cleared Daniel Bryan to wrestle. He's re-signed a new 3-4 year contract. So I definitely think Daniel Bryan is not done. He's 40 years old. He's still a good age. I don't think he'll be like wrestling a heavy schedule, like that of WWE. But I definitely don't think he is done being an in-ring competitor. And like I said, AEW would be a good get for Daniel Bryan. And this is why, and I'm just going to kind of go around the circle here, but like I just said, like Big Show brings some value to WWE, to AEW. He's a veteran. He's been there. And he has way more experience in the business than Daniel Bryan. But if you were to ask me, hey, who would I pick? Daniel Bryan or Big Show? I'm picking Daniel Bryan and my company over Big Show. If you look at Christian Cage and say like Samoa Joe, who's now also a free agent, depending on Samoa Joe's body, if he can hold up, and it's been said Samoa Joe had been wanting to wrestle, but WWE wouldn't clear him. If he's physically healthy to wrestle, and you sit up here and you ask me, hey, who would you take, Christian or Samoa Joe, would you add to your roster? Now, Christian does, again, like Big Show, veteran, can bring a lot to the table behind the scenes, not just being an in-ring competitor. But if you ask me of the two, I see a little bit more value in a Samoa Joe. Both Joe and Daniel Bryan, they've had the miles ran on their body, but they're still at a good age. Joe is like 42. Bryan just turned 40. So they're still at a pretty good age where they have enough gas in the tank age wise to still go if their bodies can hold up. So they still have value inside the ring, being an attribute to being an in-ring competitor, as well as behind the scenes and other things like how I mentioned before. Joe, you could put in a commentary booth because I think Joe was a good on commentary on Raw. That could be another hat for Joe to wear. Daniel Bryan, besides being an in-ring competitor, I think Daniel Bryan has a good mind for wrestling. I think Daniel Bryan will be a good asset you will want on your booking committee. He can book some talent. He could scout out some talent. He could even be a manager. Daniel Bryan has a personality. We've seen that in WWE. He's developed a personality. He has character. So he could be a coach to a purely athletic wrestler that they want to get over, or maybe a big beastly monster giant wrestler. There's so many things I can just think of, like from AEW's perspective, that I could put Daniel Bryan in. That's why I said AEW needs to stop signing certain people from WWE, because when you get guys like a Joe, a Daniel Bryan, those are guys I think will make excellent additions to the All Elite roster. And I don't think too many people will cringe at. So I just I don't know where Daniel Bryan goes from here. Would it shock me if he goes to AEW? Kinda, because I don't think Daniel Bryan wants to be locked down to like a long-term deal going elsewhere. I think he just kind of wants to be a floater and just kind of freely kind of go wherever he wants. A couple bookings here, a couple bookings there, and not really be locked down to a specific company. It's not just AEW, but just any company. It's interesting. The next few months, I think the summer in wrestling, from all the talent that got released in WWE to the storyline and the crossover between Impact and AEW, which you could say lack of thereof, there hasn't been much, but I think it's going to kick up over in the summer. I really do, as we get more people in these live shows in attendance. I think that's going to heat up a little bit more. Now you got New Japan being in the mix, laying in bed with AEW and Impact Wrestling. Now that we have Daniel Bryan being a free agent, it's going to be an interesting summer for wrestling outside that WWE bubble. Definitely. And even inside for WWE, since Daniel Bryan was a main event guy, who can they build now into that main event spot? And I know a lot of people say, well, hey, Cesaro, the storyline is there for Cesaro to kind of, take the momentum of Bryan being an advocate in his push that he's having right now, use that to take him to the next level. There's a storyline there that Roman banished Bryan from the company and Cesaro can step in and take his place. There's a storyline there to be written. Is Cesaro that guy that can fill that void of a Daniel Bryan and be that next main event breakout star? I don't know, but definitely they gotta pump some people up, because like, who else is there on the SmackDown roster for Roman Reigns? There's really like nobody, because he's pretty much beating everybody, or he's beating the same people multiple times throughout the month. So like, that main event spot in SmackDown's looking kind of thin, with Roman Reigns sitting at the tippy top. So they have to build somebody up now to be in that spot. So it's a little bit interesting. You guys let me know what you're thinking about below. Do yourself a favor, hit the like video and subscribe. Peace out.